for, and as we know, when things go pear-shaped, it saves a lot of time if you just blame the teachers. Let's go straight to the teachers. And the question today is, are schools teaching our kids enough grammar? This year's NAPLAN results apparently suggest schools aren't. And today the Premier Dominic Perrottet has announced the English syllabus will be overhauled to try to lift the writing standards of students. Grammar will become a core focus for years 3 to 10 to try to help turn around the decade-long decline in this area. Dr. David Roy is a lecturer in education at the University of Newcastle, and he's here with his thoughts. David, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone in the Newcastle and Hunter area.
You're obviously not teaching the teachers well enough.
Well, technically, I'm not teaching the grammar element of the teachers to be teaching. It's a different element to that entirely. And I think it's quite a complex issue that has been once again opened up in the, maybe not the reading wars, and we're now into the writing wars of education.
And I know we some criticisms that we'll get here from time to time from pedants, you know, they're quite nuances, but we'll all hear in common parlance things are pronounced incorrectly.
Absolutely. And there is a difference between colloquial, just relaxed spoken language and then written language, and depending on who your audience is for, how you write in that language. I rarely text on my phone, but I know that I probably am inappropriate in my language usage because I use formal language on texts when actually it's probably more appropriate to use the shortened form. So language is always develop and change over time. We don't speak nor do we write the way that Shakespeare did 400 years or so ago. And in fact, he invented lots of words for us to now use. So it's a flowing thing, but I think these changes will be interesting for how schools react to them and what potential impact they could have.
Dost thou children need to be using or knowing these key grammatical skills if they're not going to be using them?
Oh, verily so, Paul. Listen, I'm a great believer that grammar and what you write can reflect on, as a first impression for people, how they're going to look at you and view you, particularly if you're, say, applying for jobs or in a workplace or working in a professional manner, which is, again, a register, a type of speaking, writing that you're using with people. Having grammar as a skill is key. I think one of the things we will conflate is the difference between learning literacy and learning literature, because we often put the two together and we've kind of left the teaching of English writing to English teachers. And I know this sounds like, well, what's wrong with that? But technically English is a language. So there is a separation between the two. So having grammar to be used and developed as a focus is not a bad thing. Basing it on NAPLAN results and criticising purely because of 1 year's NAPLAN results is a bit more problematic given the limitations of NAPLAN.
Won't the software just correct it anyway?
Well, actually, that's one of the problems that I think we actually have. It's not so much to do with schools, it's the fact that not just kids, but adults are very, very lazy when you use your spell check, because it checks the spelling of words. It doesn't check if it's the correct word or if it's the correct context for that word. So yes, that is something that people use as an excuse, but I think focusing on grammar is a good thing. Will it be to the detriment of other areas of learning and knowledge? That's the concern I have, because sometimes we say, oh, this needs to be improved, and we focus on that and we miss the others. It's a bit like having a car and going, oh, we need to have really good brakes. Let's just focus all our energy on the brakes of the car. In the meanwhile, the rusty bonnet and hubcaps are falling off and the car falls apart, but hey, your brakes are great. So let's not diminish or reject other learning areas within primary and secondary schools while still building on grammar, which should be across every subject that you do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because higher levels of automation are expected. I mean, the day will come when I'll say, hey, Siri, send a text message to David Roy, play with his ego a little bit, tell him how brilliant he is and ask him if he'll come on for a radio interview this afternoon. I mean, and you'll get a pro forma letter or, text message.
And I also know it's not actually from you if it's plain with.
That's right. Yeah, put a bit of subterfuge in there and a couple of insults just so he knows it's genuine. Yeah, David. So I mean, you've highlighted the fact that there's spoken English and there's written English.
Mm-hmm.
We need fundamental understanding of both. Clearly.
Yes. Yeah. We need to be able to understand the rules, how it works, and I guess that's one of the areas that I have noticed a lot of kids don't grasp, and I ended up doing a lot of that with my own sons, is teaching them, well, why are we using verbs at this point? Why are we dropping an E or putting an apostrophe in here? Or my big bugbear with many is the fact that they don't use commas or paragraphing properly, and explain the rules behind it. And if you understand the rules, then you can use it. Just like if you understand the rules of a sport, you'll play it better. So that's really important. I just worry the fact that we're focusing so much on NAPLAN, which in itself is deeply flawed because it's only looking at very particular small things out of context for many kids. And most of our reading and writing is within a context that has a purpose, and we understand that purpose, and we often will write to that.
David, appreciate your input. Thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure, Paul, anytime.
Dr. David Roy from the University of Newcastle. He'll be hearing from Siri again when we've got an education matter to discuss.